All right, this is a presentation on lesson momentum and flow. So really that begs the question, what is lesson flow? And you sort of see this little flow chart here. And really we need to figure out what do the students need to learn, what activities are we going to do that's going to help them learn, and how are we going to assess that learning? And we have to figure out how to meet all those criteria and think about each one of those things as we go through each activity and lesson that we do. So before we even start working on coming up with any lessons, we really need to figure out certain pieces of information, namely, what am I going to be doing, who am I going to be helping, who am I going to be teaching, and what am I going to do to finish this whole thing up? Well, we've learned in this class about different things to be taking into account when we're learning about lessons and lesson flow, and when you're going to be taking a look at different things on how to make your lessons work, how ideas on how to get them to move from one activity to the other, or just activities in general, there's no shortage of websites that can help you out. These are 3 that I found in about 5 minutes in looking for ways to write lesson plans. And you can find all sorts of different ideas online. We even have multiple ideas in this class. So if you are searching for some things, you can find all sorts of different stuff online. Everything's going to be a little bit different, but you're going to find some common threads throughout. And that's what I'm going to be taking a look at, is a few of the consistencies in all of these different sites and everything that we're going to be taking a look at when you're looking at how to write a lesson. These are some of the things that you're going to see pop up time and time again. They may appear under different names, but they're going to be there in some way, shape, or form. The first thing is, what's your purpose? What are you doing? Why are you teaching this? What's the goal? And if you don't know what you're trying to do and what you're trying to teach the kids, you could end up following any one of these crazy paths and end up in a place you don't want to be. So you don't want to make sure right from the beginning you know what your goal and purpose is. Then we learn that in this class, and it's in every one of these websites that try to help you teach your lessons, is you got to hook them early. You got to figure out a way to pique their interest right away. Because how often do we turn our students off almost immediately because they're just not that interested in what we're trying to say? And if you can figure out a way to hook them early and keep their attention, you're going to have a much better chance of teaching these kids. And now how do we do this? There's a lot of different ways, and it depends on what you teach. It depends on the age of the kids you teach. So I can't give any definitive ways of, oh, you do this or do that. We got a whole list of them in section 5 of this class. And some of my personal favorites are show videos or get them active. I'm a science teacher, so I love demonstrations. But what works for me at the high school in physics is not going to work for somebody maybe in kindergarten or 1st or 5th or 7th grade who teaches English or social studies or music. So there's lots of ideas for how to do this online, and you want to take advantage of that if you don't have some of these already. Just search for them on Google. You'll find tons of ideas, but this is way too neglected. Hook them early, figure out an interesting way. Just telling everybody to get quiet at the start of a lesson isn't going to work. Then it moves to direct instruction. This is the meat of your lesson. This is where the kids are getting the information. And when it comes to that, you want to make sure you're not boring. Be exciting. Some common tips that I like: be dynamic. What is the point of the lesson? Why are they learning this? Tell them. Relate the material to things that they are interested in. And ultimately, don't make arbitrary educational hurdles. If the kids feel, I just have to do this for a grade, they're not invested. They don't care. And finally, differentiate your instructions. Do not be boring. Come up with different ways of presenting the material to get the kids engaged. Watch your transitions as you move from lesson to lesson. You're going to get a lot of wasted time. You're going to get a lot of wasted energy if you don't think through how you're going to go from activity A to activity B. Think that through, have a plan, have your materials ready, and you're going to be able to have a much more efficient and enjoyable lesson for you and the kids. Finally, allow time for extension. We have a thing in the school that I'm at where we talk about these 4 different quadrants of learning, and we try to get to quadrant D as much as possible, which is adaptation, where the kids show that they really have understood the lesson. And that's where you want to try to get to. You want to give them the opportunity to extend beyond just, I understand the material, or I know the material. Show that they understand it and then move beyond it and apply it to different situations. And to finish up, the closure. So how do we wrap up everything? We have to wrap it up in some way, shape, or form. And there's a whole bunch of different ways. Depending on the lesson, you could do the snowball fight idea where the kids write something down on a piece of paper and they throw it up at the front of the room, or journal entries or exit tickets, and so on and so forth. There's all sorts of different ways to close a lesson and make it interesting and meaningful, and they can tell you that they've understood what's happening, and you can let them know, sort of sum up everything that they're supposed to know. Again, lots of those are available online. It's going to depend on the lesson, but don't neglect it. It should be something that you have in everything you teach. To sum up, focus on your goals. I had a really good piece of advice in how to write an English paper back when I was a younger man in high school and college, which is I would write all of this stuff and I'd have my introduction, which would sort of set up the whole paper and lead me toward an end goal. And then my teacher told me that my next several paragraphs or several pages would really go off on a complete tangent and not really talk about what was in the initial introduction of the paper. And then my final paragraph, where I summed everything up, would bring me right back to the bullseye. So he said you started saying this is where you want to go, you ended off way into the distance, and then you finished trying to say this is where we got to, and it wasn't effective. You want to make sure that every step along the way, from the introduction to the direct instruction to the activities that you do, and then finally your closure, all are focused on reaching this goal. You want to hit the goal, you want to hit the bullseye, and then that's when you know that your lessons are going to make sense. These are a few of the resources that I looked into in order to plan this presentation. Hope it helped. Hope you learned something.